Our world is constantly evolving. As time moves forward, things change, which is why it's important to stay informed. Throughout the year, there are dozens of professionals that share their expertise with the community through lectures sponsored by local government agencies and area not-for-profits. And each month, SLC TV will feature one of these visiting professors as they discuss the latest current events. So grab a notebook and pull up a chair, because the lecture hall is about to begin.
All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome. Thank you for coming, and I appreciate the attendance today. We had an ad that went out on St. Lucie County social media. Facebook was sent out by Eric Gill, the Public Information Director with St. Lucie County, and there was a lot of interest in this topic. And that's primarily because we're seeing these agamas all over town, and my job here today is to tell you a little bit more about them. So my name is Ken Gioeli. I am the University of Florida IFAS, and that's the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. I'm the UF IFAS Natural Resources Extension Agent for St. Lucie County. I've been on board doing this work since 1993, and pretty much I grew up here. My family, we came to Port St. Lucie back in the mid-1980s, and we've seen a lot of things change here. And we're familiar with some of the non-native species like the lionfish and the pythons and all this other stuff. But we've seen some recent changes. I would say within the last 7 or 8 years, we've started seeing, we'll take questions at the end. So we've seen some changes over the years, and we're seeing some non-native reptiles that we didn't see before. Predominantly, they were coming here from the pet trade, and they escaped captivity, and they're out there wreaking havoc. We're familiar with the pythons that are, eating some of the smaller animals in the Everglades. And I had a nice little discussion about that beforehand. They're not eating all the animals in the Everglades. They're eating animals in pockets of the Everglades. So, we're hearing about impacts like this. This is what we're seeing. These are the piturs. I call it piturzas to emphasize that 2 S's are in there. The piturzas rock agama. This is what we're seeing here in St. Lucie County. And we've been seeing them probably for the last 7 years or 8 years. We've been seeing increased numbers of these reptiles. I'd like to give special thanks to the St. Lucie County Library, especially Maureen Gallagher. She's the supervisor here at this branch, and giving me an opportunity to come out and have an audience with you. And I do appreciate that. The amount of activity on social media regarding this particular presentation was intense. Eric Gill with Public Information put the post up, and there were 90 shares dealing with this particular presentation today, and a lot of comments. And I was reading through them, trying to respond to some. So hopefully we'll have some of those same good questions towards the end of my presentation today. So with the University of Florida, go Gators. We are the University of Florida, the Gators. Every county in the state of Florida has an extension office. Here in St. Lucie County, we have an extension office in Fort Pierce by Highline, out by the Turnpike, and then we have a branch office with limited hours at Morningside Library. And we predominantly staff that with Master Gardener volunteers. So if you have plant questions and things like that, you can go and work with those volunteers at our Morningside Branch Library. So what we're going to talk about today is identifying these piturzas rock agama, introduction and range in Florida where they currently are, and I've got a minimum range, but I have a feeling they're expanded past that already. We'll talk about some ecology and natural history, some impacts of what we're seeing, and then, of course, what you can do. That'll be kind of the take-home message. So about these non-native reptiles, it might be surprising to you, but most of what it is that we see out there in terms of reptiles are not native reptiles to Florida. There are 3 times the number of non-native reptiles in Florida than there are native reptiles. Even those Cuban brown anoles with the dewlaps down underneath it, those are Cuban. Those reptiles are not native to Florida. The green anoles are the native ones. And some of the research that we're seeing is that their behavior is changing because of these Cuban anoles and other reptiles. They're going higher up trees and they're under some stress. So there are 3 times more non-native lizards in Florida than native. There are 4 species of agama Agamidae is the family. There are 4 members of the family Agamidae here in the state of Florida. And DNA analysis has shown that the Peters's rock agama, and that's Agama picticauda, and I'll show you a little bit more of the picture of the female and male in just a minute. But the Peters's rock agama are the most widespread. So even like 10 years ago, 7 years ago, I will be interviewed about these lizards because people were taking notice of them. And you can find news clips and video of me calling them rainbow agamas, agama, and that's what we thought they were at that time. But we had a UF student, Nunez, I believe he has since graduated, I think it was his master's thesis or his dissertation, that worked out the genetics. And what they've done is they've looked at what's called haplotypes, which are sequences of genes. And they've matched up the sequences of genes of the agama that we have here in the Treasure Coast area and pretty much the most populated urbanized areas of Florida. They've matched those up with the 4 most common ones that we have in Florida, and we've found that it's definitely that Peters's rock agama. So there's a little difference in the way I talk about them now than there were, even 7, 8 years ago. So this might be a little bit of an abstraction, but this curve goes for all invasives in Florida. And I know anytime we talk about statistics and things like that, sometimes people are a little uncomfortable with that. But there is something called an invasion curve. And science has shown that things are predictable when an invasion occurs. And with the agama, the invasion followed this predictable curve. So first of all, what we try to do is we try to prevent these invasives from coming in. It could be invasive insects. And here in the state of Florida, we have the Division of Plant Industry that is looking for new scale insects, new ants and things like that might be traveling into the state of Florida. So prevention is one of the ways that we try to keep these non-natives from becoming invasive. Sometimes they escape that situation and they end up in small populations, very localized populations, and if we detect them early enough, we can get out there and do an eradication. So 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, when these agama were first popping up, if we had known what was going to occur, we could have jumped on this really fast, gotten in there, and done an eradication of the population and stopped it from expanding. But we have gone way past this eradication phase. They've gone beyond the small localized populations. They have also, well, we're probably still in this. They're rapidly increasing, so we're seeing a lot more of these agama. I know my office is in Fort Pierce, and even a year ago, I was not seeing these agama at my office. Now they're all over the place. So we're at that rapid increase in numbers. So we're talking about containment, which is not really possible. We're in resource protection and long-term management. That's what we're dealing with. And so invasive species are becoming widespread and more abundant, and we're talking about long-term management. And this is where we have to do the research and where my colleagues and I are researching how do we manage these non-native reptiles like these Peters's agama that are being seen now in St. Lucie County. And of course, as you go up this invasion curve, the cost increases. So if you think about something like Brazilian pepper tree, the state of Florida has to spend millions of dollars making sure that our right-of-ways are pepper tree free, so it doesn't spread into natural areas and so forth. All this stuff costs money. So with the introduction of this particular species, it is native to eastern parts of Africa. The first introduction was in 1976 through the pet trade, and it was the same reptile dealer in Homestead down in Miami-Dade and in Palm City that is responsible for letting these go. So it was these 2 localized releases that research has shown has been responsible for the introduction of these reptiles, and that's the spread all over the place. DNA analysis has shown that it is not closely related to the agama, which is what we used to call, I even used to call it, the African rainbow agama, the red-headed agama. Keep in mind that those are all common names of things, but the common names should be somewhat, related to the genus and species. It is not the agama africana, which is what I was calling them even 5 years ago. That research by Nunez proved that it was a different species that we're dealing with. And this is what the males look like. Now, there's a term called dimorphic. They are sexually dimorphic, which means that the males and females look completely different. When you see these red-headed agamas, this is the male. If you see them bright red with that, even the indigo striping on the tail gets to be more pronounced, that is when they're in the mature breeding stage. They get to be more bright. Their coloration is more subdued when they're not in their breeding stage. And then this is what the females look like. So you might have missed these. You might have been seeing a lot of these, but if you look closer, you're going to be seeing a lot of the females out there as well. And if you look, they might look like these Cuban anoles, except they're about 3 times as large as the Cuban anoles. And of course, you see them climbing up buildings. They can pretty much be anywhere that you would expect a Cuban anole to be found. And the females, when they're in their egg-laying stage, will be yellow or orange. So you see up at the head, it's got some of that greenish turquoise coloration to it. It is surprisingly colorful once you get past that drab coloration to it. You look at it a little bit more close, and there is some color to it. It's just that they're not quite as pronounced as the males are. And you also see that they do slough off their skin, just like snakes do as they grow. The scales kind of slough off. It's not a disease or anything, it's just a natural occurrence. And this is what the juveniles look like. The juveniles, both the males and the females, look very similar to the females as far as the coloration goes. It's just obviously they're smaller and their scales have a little bit different texture. It's a very rough texture to the scales. So that's what we're seeing out there. These are extremely flighty. If you get, sometimes it's hard to get within 15 feet of these things and they're taking off. So they're extremely elusive to people. When it gets colder out, they have a tendency to kind of shelter down a little bit more and try to stay warm. But their activity does slow down a little bit more when it gets cold out. On a day today, you know, it's a little bit overcast, a little bit cool out. It might be a little bit more difficult to see them than it would be like on an August afternoon in full sun. So they are very wary of people, which makes it more difficult for them to be managed. So we can't get up close to them with a net and trap them with a net. It's almost impossible to get that close. So this is the current range, and this is a minimum range. So they have spread way beyond this. And it's funny because I was on a bike riding tour. I hit a program this weekend on Sunday called Birding on a Bicycle. And we did it out at the Stick Marsh way out in Fellsmere in western Indian River County. And I had a couple of people from Palm Bay that were there, and I was telling them about this presentation today, and they said, "Oh, I've never seen these agamas." I said, "Well, they're on the way." So what we're in the process of doing right now in the research end is we are asking people to help us find that invasion front. And, you know, we talk about invasion fronts in war. This is kind of what we're dealing with right now. Where are these reptiles going into? What is the new territory that they're going into? And how do we prepare the people there to be aware of these reptiles? So what do they eat? They're mostly carnivorous. I have to tell you, though, that in the state of Florida, we have not completely determined exactly what it is that they're eating out there. In their native range in East Africa, they're mostly insectivorous, but I have a feeling here they're probably going to be eating some, mostly insects, but I have a feeling they're probably also going to be eating some of the smaller non-native anoles, like that Cuban anole that we're seeing out there. So we're having one non-native reptile probably eating another. Now, I don't call these invasive yet, and I have to be careful. You guys can, of course, say whatever you want. You can call them invasive. But as a person who works for the University of Florida, I have to be careful because there are legal determinations on what is invasive and what is not. And there are actually federal laws that say what an invasive is. And one of the things that we do at UF is we try to document the impacts of these non-native reptiles. And we have to show that they are causing a harm. So they have to be invasive. They have to come from someplace outside of the state of Florida. They have to be able to breed on their own, sustain themselves, and increase in population size. And they have to cause economic or ecological harm. And what we're doing right now is we're trying to determine what that harm is. Because we know they're out there, we know the increase in population, but we need to figure out exactly what they're doing. So they could be eating small mammals, small birds, small reptiles, vegetation such as flower, grasses, and fruit. But we definitely do need to have a little bit more research to go into this. With reproduction, it's occurring in spring and in summer. So in summertime, that's when we have the maximum number of agamas out there because all the little eggs are hatching. The females will lay clutches between 7 to 9 eggs, and they are soft shells. They're not like a chicken egg. They're going to be soft shell. Many reptiles are soft shell. And the female will lay about 2 to 3 clutches every year. So one female could be as many as 27, hatchlings in ideal conditions. So ecological harm, like I've said, more research is needed. They occur mainly in suburban areas, and we're finding them in populated areas like in Port St. Lucie. They're pretty much throughout the urban environment here in St. Lucie County. You can go pretty much anywhere here on Hutchinson Island, down in Jensen Beach. They're in the urbanized areas. We're not really ready to we're not saying that they're an ecological harm yet because we have not seen them creating a huge problem in the natural areas that we're preserving. Now, I can tell you that down in Homestead, there are some state and national park managers down in Homestead that are extremely worried about the invasion of these agama into their natural spaces because they spend a lot of time and energy keeping these spaces pristine. So what they've started doing is they've started inspecting vehicles as they come in. So if you think about it, we knew that they were down in Stewart for a very long time. They stayed down south of the bridge, and then lo and behold, they started popping up in Jensen Beach. So that bridge, I have a feeling, was a barrier for them for quite a long time. But because of the fact that they do crawl on a lot of things, they cling to a lot of things, they were getting on vehicles and we were able to transport them advertently or inadvertently, on purpose or not on purpose, across the Roosevelt Bridge. And that's why we're seeing them throughout all of St. Lucie County, except in the natural areas. Now, I am aware of one natural area in St. Lucie County. We had somebody who manages one of the preserves. They saw the agamas popping up on the buildings out there, and they wanted to know, well, what can we do about this? And what they did was fairly ingenious. Very smart people working over there. They paid a bounty. They were going to pay kids to go out like 50 cents per agama. Okay, so they would go out and they would pay the kids 50 cents per agama from the natural area. You had to pull them out of here, and they did that, and they were able to pay the kids a few bucks to do the job that they didn't have time or the effort, the energy to be able to do it. And they stopped doing that though. What I think happened out there, they stopped using this method because they noticed that the kids were selling them right back to the pet trade. So, you can put all this energy into eradicating, I had that invasion curve up there. You could put all this energy and put all this money into eradicating these Pete Herz's rock agama from the urbanized areas of St. Lucie County, pay kids bounties to go out and find them, and then you can go to the store and buy them yourself. So, that's where we're dealing with that regulatory issue, and it seems like the regulatory end of things, which I'm not a regulator, I'm an educator, I work in research as well a little bit, and the regulators tend to be a little bit behind the times when it comes to, management of these and keeping these reptiles from becoming a problem. There is likely little competition with native species. So I would think that the only thing that would be much competition would be the green anoles, and we're already seeing some impacts of these non-native reptiles on these green anoles and causing them stress in the environment, having to go up higher in trees and so forth. Potentially they could threaten imperiled butterflies. When I was reading some of the comments on Facebook pertaining to this presentation, somebody was on there talking about the Atala butterflies and how they were worried about the agamas eating the Atala butterflies. Well, the Atala many of these butterflies themselves are toxic. The Attala butterfly has a toxin in it called cycasin toxin, and it's in the entire life cycle from egg, chrysalis, all the way around. It's toxic in its entire life cycle. So it's not likely that some of those toxic butterflies are going to be, heavily predated by these agama, but potentially monarchs could be. Potentially some others, they might just taste bad. They might not necessarily be toxic like the Attalas are. And of course, they do not threaten people. They don't bite us unless we pick them up and, not carry them properly. So what can you do? You can report them. There is an app called EdMaps, and what you can do is use your cell phone, download that app. It's free of charge. My recommendation is to log in and get your user ID and password, and then keep that app handy. And anytime you see a red-headed or the Peter's rock agama, or any of these other, like a python or whatever it might be, take a picture of that and upload it to this EdMaps. And I'm one of the people on the other end of that. Me and Amanda Thompson and Ren Underwood and a few other people. So when we have these non-native reptiles, especially unusual ones, ball pythons and things like that every once in a while pop up in the system, we then get notified about them. We might be able to do some sort of an immediate eradication. Every once in a while we get something really weird. Remember the warthog in Fort Pierce? We had a warthog. We had a real warthog. This is not something that's Florida native. So report them when seen. I always give a disclaimer about this, a little bit of a warning. If you see some of these non-native reptiles and you use this app, some of these reptiles can be dangerous, like deadly dangerous. And yes, we do have pythons in St. Lucie County. So always make sure that you're safe before you use this EdMap. And report invasives when you see them. And this is what we have. Iguanas are here. If you go out to McCarty Ranch out in western St. Lucie County, west of Tradition out here, you'll see them basking usually on the cold mornings. You'll see them on the side of the ponds out there. Basilisks, they call them the Jesus Christ lizards because they run on water. They're here. And when you start seeing these basilisks is when it rains out and you have a lot of puddles. I was seeing them at the extension office. Every time it would rain out, there would be puddles under the vehicles. And I'd see the water splash as I went out into the parking lot. I'd just see water splashing up, and they were the basilisks running away from me. And near the Oxbow Eco Center, by the way, if you've never been there, put it on the list. It's on St. James. It's beautiful over there. Take a nice hike out there some afternoon. And they've got canals and ditches in neighborhoods around there. And I was out there one time doing some survey work on iguanas, and I got close to the ditch, and all of a sudden I saw water splashing all over the place. They were the basilisks. And they used to be like this big, but now I'm seeing them like this. They're getting much larger. I think that's just because there's lack of predators out there eating them. Of course, the curly tails have been here for a long time, and they've got that pronounced, curl in their tail. Sometimes you see the reptiles, their tail might have been eaten off by something, but you'll be able to recognize at least a little bit of a curl. The Burmese pythons, the pythons are here. Every once in a while, you'll hear about how some police officer with the city of Port St. Lucie had to go and contend with one. I've got a news clipping from a few years ago. There's a canal behind, very close to City Hall, and I guess there was a Burmese python in somebody's neighborhood in their backyard, and the police had to go out and shoot it because it was very large. It was a substantially large snake, and when I say large, they are big. They're using the canal systems. So the freshwater systems are their method of conveyance. So if you're out there, especially near bodies of fresh water, be aware that these invasives could be popping up there. Now this, I'm glad that nobody's eating too much while I'm showing this. It is roadkill. That's a picture that I took. That is a tegu, a black and white tegu. And that was hit by a car. I didn't hit it, but I have gone out on several calls where people have found these things smushed by cars, and the black and white tegus are here, but they're not quite as pronounced as the Peter's rock agama that we're seeing out there. The thing about these reptiles is I have a feeling we're going to have a little bit easier time documenting the impacts, because these reptiles tend to take over burrows from animals like gopher tortoises. They get in there, they'll use gopher tortoise burrows, and I'm assuming they kick the gopher tortoise out. So they're here also. And I had somebody bring me a Dumeril's boa. And I didn't realize this at the time, but if you were to go and find one of these, it's a $900 boa constrictor. So somebody was illegally, I'm assuming, I don't have names and addresses, I'm assuming somebody was illegally raising these. They found it, somebody, Audrey Beanie that I work with at UF, found this in a field near her house, and it was eating a cane toad. So it was one invasive eating another. And we're familiar with the cane toads. We used to call them bufos until we realized that they were not in the same genus. They didn't belong in the same genus, as there are many bufos out there. Many of them are completely harmless to people. So they did a little bit more work, and they took the cane toads, the dangerous ones, and gave them their own genus called Rhinella. So we don't call them Rhinella toads. Everybody still calls them bufo toads, but they technically are not in that same genus anymore. I call them cane toads. But when they get aggravated and irritated, they secrete a milky white toxin that could kill dogs about the size of a Cocker Spaniel or so. So in this case, we had a Dumeril's boa trying to eat a cane toad. So that was one eating the other. And you know who won? I did. It ended up in the freezer. I didn't want either one. But then I found out that there was a $900 snake, and I felt pretty bad about that, because I could have given it to the people I work with down in Fort Lauderdale. The nice thing about working for the University of Florida is not only do I have colleagues in all 67 counties in the state of Florida, but we have 13 research stations. In Vero Beach, we've got experts dealing with mosquito-borne diseases. So if I ever had to work on something with Zika or whatever the latest mosquito-borne disease is, I've got people there that I can work with just like that. These people will come and work with us. Down in Fort Lauderdale, I've got the croc docs, Dr. Frank Mazzotti and his whole team. And we've worked very closely. I could have very easily given that Dumeril's boa to him, and I'm sure they would have found a good use for it alive. But I've got kind of a rule that nothing invasive like that leaves my office alive. Don't bring it out to me, though. I've got to be honest with you, I don't want them out at my office. Part of the reason that I don't want you bring them out to me at my office in Fort Pierce is because I am an extension agent. I spend a lot of my time out and about, and I don't want my poor secretarial staff at my office having to deal with things like monitor lizards that might be brought in. Okay? So none of that stuff comes to the extension office. So some of the resources, we have this electronic database called EDIS that does a really great job of providing resources to people. I have a publication on agamas that I'm going to show you how to access in just a minute. So I do recommend that people think about this. The UF Croc Docs, you can Google that, and Croc Docs, they're right down in Fort Lauderdale. We have worked with them here locally, and they've helped us do, there was a reptile project we worked on where we were scouting. And one of the things we tried doing is we tried engaging with master naturalists. I'm the Florida Master Naturalist lead instructor, so I have over 400 graduates in the area, close to 800 if you count all the courses that I co-instructed with. But we've got a lot of these volunteers and other experts out there, and what we tried doing is working with them, going out to some remote areas, scouting for reptiles, looking for them before they made a toehold and got in here and were here to stay. It wasn't as successful as we had hoped it would be. The volunteers lost interest over time, places became less accessible, and that project just ended. But the UF Croc Docs, they're out there helping us out. And then of course the University of Florida Wildlife Department can help out. UF also has some great books available on the IFAS bookstore. And then of course we've got some literature. And what I would like you to please consider doing at this point, if you would like to have my agama, the Peters Rock Agama, you can take out your cell phone at this time, open up your camera, open up the camera app, and then scan this. And what it will do is it will give you You'll scan that QR code, and what will happen is a little survey will come up, and you can tell me what you thought about the presentation today. And then once you finish that survey, it will automatically take you to my Agama publication, which then can pretty much reinforce what I've just gone over with you.